Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Here at Altruize, we're trying to help people be better intentionally. And to do that, we know that goal setting is really important. I mean, you can't even have an account on Altruize without having your altruistic goals. So how many hours you'd like to do in the community, for example. And we are so happy to have with us today Desiree Panlillio. I got the last name right, I think.
You got it.
Thank you. um, to help us really talk a little bit more in depth about what those goals mean and how to get the most out of them. And there's an acronym that's used called SMART goals. And she's going to go through with us and show us why those are important and how to best utilize that standard of goal setting. But first, Desiree, why don't you give us a little background, kind of what got you, have you always been a SMART goal setter?
I have not always been a SMART goal setter, and I'd be far more successful in high school and probably in my college years if I'd actually written some goals and not did that panic studying and everything. But I really came across SMART goals as a nurse, and we called them nursing goals then, and they were very specific. They were really timeline to a patient's duration of their hospitalization, and they were broken down into 8-hour, 12-hour goals. So you really learn to create goals that were very specific. And I got out of nursing, I had kids, and I started a company, and all of a sudden these magical goals came up called SMART goals. I'm like, this is exactly the same thing. It really creates that goal that you can find it, you can fine tune it, and then you can write down, how am I going to get to that goal? And it's really easy to follow. And I think it's great for kids. Little kids can follow it, college kids, adults. I still use them because it keeps me on track. It keeps me responsible and accountable to where I'm trying to go.
Nice. And you own and operate your own company called Encouraging Teens. And I'm assuming you utilize this method a lot then and try to teach it through there.
I do. I teach all the kids SMART goals is a huge part of how, whatever their goal is, whether it's athletic, academic, social, to get a job, to get college applications done. That's kind of been the big push right now because, the first wave of college applications come in November. So I don't do the college counseling part, but I make them write their goals. What colleges do you want to view? And right now it's all online. So which online college are you going to view? How are you going to do all that? And they write it down step by step, and you can check it off. And that's really important to be able to have that time crunch on your goal and really see it come to fruition and that you achieve it.
Nice. Well, I'm going to step back and let you take over the reins here because you've also been nice enough to provide some visuals with the conversation on the SMART goals so that people can learn like right now from the expert on how to get started with this. So let me give you that capability here and you can share your screen with us. So, yeah, I'm excited. I've got my pen and paper ready to take notes too. So.
I love it. I love that you're going to take notes because you know what? Every time I do something, I learn. Every day I'm learning something new from someone. So I get so excited at the end of the day.
Yep. Yeah, sorry kids. Life is about learning all the time.
Exactly. Oh, look there it is. How amazing. So yes, I do own a company called Encouraging Teens. I have a degree in nursing, a master's in behavioral psychology, focusing on life coaching. I like to do the fun stuff. So that's how I do it. I do it through life coaching. I get to work with goals and watch, teenagers grow into themselves. So it's super fun. But what is a SMART goal? You can tell someone to write a SMART goal, but until they see it and they actually work with it, it's really hard. So a SMART goal is about something that's very specific. It's measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. So kind of like the milk in the fridge, it expires at some point, so you got to chip chop and get on it. You can't just let it go, otherwise it's just a dream and nothing ever happens. So I tell them it's chip chop, you got to get going on them. You can't wait till the last minute. So the specific part is really the key. It really brings the goal together. So it's the who, what, when, where, why, which. It's the details of the goal that really creates that accountability. So, an example of a goal is to complete 100 hours of community service, which is, part of what, how do you track that? What do you do? So you're going to complete 100 hours, but how are you going to do that? It's not really a SMART goal yet. It's still kind of a dream. I'd like to complete 100 hours, but let's shape that into a goal. So this is where, for your teens and everyone looking at this is where the work comes in. So it's measurable.
By the way.
I know. Is that a great goal? I think, you know, I know in Florida they have to complete 100 hours of community service to graduate as part of the graduation requirement. So I'm like, let's figure out how to do that. And every teenager leaves it for the last year. I really wish I could encourage them to start in like, you know, 10th grade or their junior year instead of like, oh, can I do that in my senior year and apply for everything else? So I'm like, maybe this will encourage kids to like do it sooner. So the how do I know I've completed the goal? How do you make it measurable? So I will complete 100 hours of community service. So it's already a measure. So you know that it's the 100 hours that you need to complete. So you kind of have that measure of success. So if it, in versus I'll just do some community service. So you've kind of got the measurable part in. So let's move on and see what else you need to add. Attainable. Can you achieve the goal or do you need some help? So do you need to find a place to do that community service? You know, you can't just do community service by taking out the garbage every week. That's not just going to work for, you know, mom's not going to sign off on that. So you need to find a place that's going to host you and let you do it. And sometimes that's a little tougher because you're a teenager, you know, what you're allowed to do, not allowed to do. So I used, you know, in Tampa, they can volunteer at the Tampa Bay Food Bank. They can either stock shelves, they can pre-package the, you know, the food baskets that are given out. They don't necessarily let them work with handing the food out to the people. So, but there's so many other things behind the scenes that need to be done at a food bank. So now we know that it's attainable. I've found a place that I can do it. So that's kind of part of the legwork of creating the goal when I'm working with teens is what resources do you have? So the goal is more specific. So realistic, can you achieve the goal? Is it realistic to try and do 100 hours of community service at the Tampa Bay Food Bank? So is that going to fit in with your, you know, your school schedule, your athletic schedule, your personal schedule for adults, and we're writing a goal? Is that going to work for everything that we're trying to do in life? If I'm working full time, am I going to be able to say my goal is to volunteer 4 hours once a month at the food bank? Is that reasonable with everything else? So I always make them look at, is it realistic to do? And 100 hours, they're like, okay, I can do that. Okay, it's realistic. Let's go on and make sure that it's working with everything else, your personal mission statement, everything else we do. So then time sensitive. This is always the hard part for teenagers, probably the hard part for adults. What's the expiration date? When, you know, when's that yogurt go bad in the fridge? You got to eat it before then. So how are you going to do it? When are you going to complete the goal? And I really encourage the kids to pick a date, you know, look at the school calendar, because that's usually how it's easiest to do any type of goal for them. They're not going to do it over the summer. That's just, you know, realistic. They're not going to go, oh, I could do a lot of hours in June. It kind of pushes the goal out. So I pull it back and I make it kind of hinge on the school year. Just create success for teenagers.
So maybe even kind of check your time sensitive date that you picked against the realistic part again, just to make sure.
Exactly. So you get that date and then you're kind of like, okay, I have a date, I have a calendar. And that's when you start putting in, oh, my family's going to go see, you know, grandma for Christmas for the whole Christmas vacation. So I'm not going to be able to do that extra, you know, 100, you know, extra community service there. So you really have to make them look and see how that's all going to shape. And it's just by teaching them to look at the whole time management, which is another thing I teach. So we kind of pull those both together. So you kind of marry everything together. So then, you know, I will complete 100 hours of community service at the Tampa Bay Food Bank by the end of the school year. Well, and the school year is May 28th, 2021. I picked a random date, really, because I think we're all in flux how the whole school year is going to go. So I picked the end of May. So that's great. So now you have this goal, and now you can write the objectives with that time management piece, the calendar, and everything else, and what's realistic for your, you know, your daily life. And that comes into writing objectives. So one of the things that was really great is I'll volunteer for 2 hours every Saturday. I'm going to see if I can move this. There we go. I'll volunteer for 2 hours every Saturday from August 28th, 2020 until May 28th, 2021. And they're going to create an account with you. They're going to create that Altruize account, and download the app so that they can track the hours right then and there, so they're not remembering later, because we all know teenagers love their phone.
Yes.
So this is the best app. I'm like so excited. I wish my kids had this when they were in high school, because wow, all those papers I photocopied and created my own little Excel spreadsheet to try and track it so that, you know, it wasn't a big deal. So you look at it, and we can go through with their calendar. You get 38 Saturdays, you won't be there on holidays. So if you do it, you'll get 76 hours that you'll be able to verify on the app. So you still need, 24 hours. So I have some different ways there. During November 23rd, you'll go help hand out food hampers for 4 hours, bring them out front that they're handing them out. So you're increasing your hours there. Over the holidays, you work a few extra hours into restocking shelves, so you can add that into your app, and it's very specific. You can see I have the dates that they're committing to. Yeah. So it's not, I'll do that extra time sometime. It's like, what day are you going to do it? How many hours? So it's really important to keep, the SMART goal very specific. So then, magically they're going to volunteer at the church the week of December 26th to 30th with a mini kids program, and they'll get an extra 20 hours, because they need to find something else. So if they need to find something else, I usually ask them, where else can they volunteer? Usually a Boys and Girls Club's a great place that's always looking for volunteers. Church is a great place. Anything, a lot of, daycare centers will take teenagers in to help with certain things. As long as they're under supervision, they can never run anything alone. That just runs into some other issues. But there's tons of places willing to take teenagers to do, community service. Animal shelters are great places. They're, they definitely have the most teenagers per capita working in them than I've ever seen, because who wouldn't want to play with a puppy?
Exactly.
I would like to play with a puppy all the time. So by that, they achieve their goal, and they've achieved it. And it's, it's done, and they haven't lost any of those hours. And that, that time frame from August to May, because they've used your app, they've been able to track those hours. They don't have to go and go, oh, did I really go that Saturday? They know that they've gone that Saturday. It's all there for them to look at. So I thought it was great. It was a great way to verify it. The school counselor has access. Like, everyone can see that they've achieved goal. It's been broken down for them, so it's super easy for them to achieve it. So in a nutshell, that's what SMART goals do. You can use them for everything. I encourage kids to use them for academics, for sports, anything that they're doing. So that is it. That is it in a nutshell, wrapped up. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, because that's really it. And I don't think everyone wants to keep reading that.
Well, thank you very much. So I have to admit, when I gave you that challenge of, can you do a SMART goal for 100 hours? Even I was like, wow, 100 hours. But yeah, once you break it down and you make it controllable, just like they say, how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. Like, just make it manageable. I think that was great.
Well, that's the whole thing. If you just tell them they have to create 100 hours of community service, that's overwhelming for a teenager. That'd be overwhelming as an adult if I said, wow, I got to do it. I would try and go out and do it like in the first week and try and mastermind it out and get it done. But when you work with them with time management, what their abilities are, what they, what's reasonable, and you go, could you do this every week, every Saturday, part of the day? Let's add in some extra places. Let's find out where we're going to have to fine tune and build in some more hours. When you do that, all of a sudden it becomes manageable. So I just feel that SMART goals are a great way to, like you said, break down anything. Eating the elephant one bite at a time, eating any big challenge. If you can break it down and create that SMART goal and the steps, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And one thing too, the app does allow for people to be able to verify any volunteering that they've done for an individual. And I bring that up just because with COVID, and we don't know where things are going with that. If you end up getting groceries for your neighbor, if you are, mowing the lawn, if that's where your activities are going to be able to come from, then you can still get those verified. So I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. But thank you so much for going through this.
That was super exciting. I love doing it. I loved the challenge. When you gave me the challenge and I was working through it, I'm like, oh, how do you do this? And I really did. I had to pull out the calendar and think of the school year and think about being a teenager. And I asked a couple of my clients, I'm like, what, because a lot of them are doing the volunteer. And it's like you said, now volunteering is so different because, food banks, a lot of the teenagers, parents don't want their teens at food. They don't want them in a lot of those places right now. There's a lot of, stress and anxiety. And so how do you do that? So I love that you're saying things like mowing lawns, because a lot of the kids are mowing lawns, or they're helping their, sounds crazy, helping mom with homework at home with their little sister because everyone's doing, homeschooling of one version or another. So helping with that, I'm thinking we never did that before, but it's a new way of volunteering and we have to embrace the change. And what does that look like? So I'm super excited that the app has that mechanism that, as we evolve and change in the new way, that it can accomplish all that and encompass it and track it all.
Yeah. Well, and just crazy times, but you know what? It's for us to decide what we're going to learn from and take away and change for the good.
Right.
And that's where we got to stay with it. So, well, thank you, Desiree, for your time. I appreciate it. If you want to transfer host capability back, and then if there's any other closing thoughts or anything else that, do you have anything coming up with Encouraging Teens? A newsletter that you'd like people to sign up for, or?
Well, I'm not sure if your audience is parents or teens, but Saturday we're doing it on IGTV Live, really talking about anxiety. And I'm going to have a special guest, a school psychologist, and we're talking about that. And I think that's really important, just what's healthy, what's disruptive anxiety. I've learned a lot, so she's going to share that with, parents and students, just so that they know what's going on in their own bodies. But really, I encourage kids to follow me on Instagram. I usually try and put something encouraging, something positive to help them get through the week, some positive affirmations. I do lots of teen coaching for different things, from time management, from personal mission statements, which kind of everything else evolves from for a kid, calls to action. So a lot of different opportunities. They can look at my website, Encouraging Teens, or they can look at Facebook. A lot of new things slowly rolling out over the next few weeks, some courses and online courses. So it's coming.
Okay.
There's been that push to go from in-person to online, and it's a bit of a shift for me because I'm not in person. I love seeing kids and seeing their faces and stuff. So it's been a learning curve of shifting.
Okay. All right. So stay connected.
Stay connected. Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Desiree. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yep.